Have you ever gone and rewatched a film that you watched a few years before, and when you've rewatched it, it's giving you a whole new perspective on what the story is? Well, that happened to me a couple of nights ago. With the release of the new Avatar 2 film, I thought, you know what, let's give James Cameron's glorious Avatar CGI goodness of a film another blast. And as I sat there and digested the film, after a few years working in the realms of filmmaking, it gave me a whole new perspective on what the film is actually about. It's not just some crazy sci-fi film with loads of CGI. There's actually a much deeper message to it, and I'm going to explain what that is in this video right now. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name's Joe Housley. On this channel we talk about getting cash, getting creative, filmmaking, and the business of creativity. And this is a brand new series that I'm going to try out on the channel called The Story Behind the Story, looking at the deeper levels of messages within films to try and unpack what they are, find some value in that so we can tell better stories as filmmakers, make better content, and grow our video businesses. And where better to look than the gold standard of films in Hollywood, the biggest budgets, the biggest directors. So let's take a look at Avatar #1. So just a quick recap on what the story is on the surface. We're in a futuristic world, and there's some ex-army bloke who's struggling because he's lost the function of his legs. He's getting into some tussles back on Earth, but in the future, there's an opportunity to go and travel to a new planet. His brother's a scientist and has been connected with these avatar bodies through some new piece of technology out on some other world. Unfortunately, his brother dies, and the only person that they can find that can use this machine to transfer into these avatar bodies is somebody with the same DNA. Voila, here comes in the ex-army man. We've got a guy who's in the military who's struggling back on Earth in a post-apocalyptic world. He jets off, he finds himself there, and he gets put on a mission by two sides of people when he arrives. One being the military, one being the scientists. The military want to get the indigenous people out of their homes so they can mine for a precious rock that exists on this planet. The scientists want to understand more about the indigenous people and what their connection is to their world and investigate them as scientists do. Learn more, explore more, figure out what they might be missing. And then it basically turns into the story of Pocahontas. You have somebody who's a little bit rough and rugged around the edges going into a world of humanoids where they are much more focused around being at one with nature. And initially, rugged army man is on the side of the military and serving his military purpose, and then eventually falls in love with the people of the indigenous planet, cares for them, sees values in their ways of life, and wants to help them out. He goes from being team human to team humanoid on this planet. It all goes crazy because the military want to take these precious rocks from underneath this mad big tree that all of the indigenous people worship, and they go in there with shock and awe tactics, blow it up, and everything goes a little bit mad. Jake Sully, who's the main character, then goes back into his humanoid body, goes and tries to help the indigenous humanoids, and then eventually becomes some super warrior and a representative of those guys, and they fight back against the humans and defeat them. So on the surface, it looks very much like an action story where there's a little bit of sci-fi in there. It's got some guns, a little bit of a love tale in there between the main character and one of the avatar humanoids. But as I watched it again the other night, I thought, no, actually, it's more than that. It's not just the story that's on the surface. And let me explain why. Avatar is telling a story of human characteristics that are good and human characteristics that are bad, and what's missing in the modern human. It really shows two sides of human character. The side of the military, which is, team human, being greedy, aggressive, and thinking with a capitalist mind to try and mine something from somebody that doesn't belong to them. It really exacerbates all the worst characteristics of humans and demonstrates what we have been like for the last tens of thousands of years, continuously being power hungry, greedy, trying to get more, and taking things that aren't ours. What the humanoids represent is what's been missing from modern humans. So their emphasis in their way of life is very much being connected to the planet that they live on, understanding nature, spending time in nature, being connected to things that are living, showing a sense of community, and valuing life over everything else, life of all living things on that planet. If you look at that conversely to how we interact with our planet, it's very different. So it's almost like the military side, the human side, is representing this greed and capitalism to their own ends, and the humanoid side is representing these more forgotten positive characteristics of our former ancestors that would live in jungles and in tribes and in caves and all that kind of stuff. And the other thing that stood out to me is James Cameron must have taken a lot of mushrooms at some point in his life, must have had hella mushrooms, because the way that the alien world is described with the networks of connections underneath the surface is very similar to what's discussed with people that are mushroom enthusiasts, advocates and mycelium scientists, where they speak about a mycelium network that connects underneath the soils of Earth. Paul Stamets is a big advocate and speaker on this topic, but what is shown in the film is almost like a very visual representation of what the magic mushroom community speaks about. So on the surface, it looks like a action-packed sci-fi army conversion to indigenous person film, but really deeper, it's demonstrating messages of good characteristics and bad characteristics, flawed characteristics of humans, and also trying to explain the message of what greed and capitalism has done and the damage it causes, and also make the point that maybe humans have lost their way, lost touch with the value of the planet that they live on. And it also proposes a question that the planet is more than what we think it is. It's more of a living, breathing thing, and it challenges the audience to think about that. And I think in a time where there's such massive movements towards climate action, the challenges that we have in terms of industry damaging our environment with water and greenhouse gases, fossil fuels being burned, it's almost like James Cameron was trying to put this out there to tell a great story, but also send a message within that story that humans need to be more connected to the world that we're in and value nature, and also maybe take some magic mushrooms along the way so we can feel more connected to it. Okay, that is a wrap. That is my story behind the story for Avatar. Go check it out again, watch it, see if you think what I'm saying resonates, or if you've watched it recently in light of the new one coming out, you might have some fresh thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, I've got a couple of videos on the screen here that might help you develop your filmmaking skills, but I'll see you in the next video. Peace.